You know, we understand that suicide is an illness of the soul. It's an illness with despair and hopelessness as the primary features. It's a state at which people arrive after being through enormous, enormous pain. So you will probably be shocked to hear these global figures. In the year 2000, the World Health Organization of the United Nations estimated that more people died from suicide worldwide than all the murders and the wars for that year put together. In Canada, we lose over 10 people every day to suicide, over 10. When we look at our figures for First Nations people, for First Nations people of all age groups, it's over twice the national average, way over twice, often close to 3 times. If we look at First Nations youth in particular, we're looking at, and I say it may be from 5 to 7 times that of the national average. I say may be because we never want to convey the idea that because a community is First Nations, it will have this rate of suicide. There's tremendous differences all over the country from community to community. So it may be, the rate may be from 5 to 7 times for First Nations youth. It can also be significantly higher. It could be 18 times higher, etc. Then we move to the Arctic. In the Arctic, the rate of suicide for young Inuit is 11 times that of the national average. If we go to Nunavut, in particular, it is 15 times that of the national average. These are some of the highest suicide figures in all the world. The last thing I'll say on the numbers situation is that, you know, the average for Canada is 15 suicides per year per 100,000 people. Okay, 15 per 100,000 people. Now, to give the context about what this means, what this loss means to Indigenous communities, there are communities in this room, and I know some of you and not all of you, who've suffered those 15 in their community and in under a year, sometimes in just a few months. So just to reframe that, that would be the number of suicides, you know, allotted to the whole of Canada for 100,000 people. And we can have a village of 1,200 or 1,000 shouldering those and bearing those losses. When I was with the young people and Arthur and Gloria yesterday, and when they were doing their beautiful presentations, you know, I see them surrounded by clouds and clouds of witnesses, and they're all our children. They're all our children. Ted said the other night in his very fine presentation, he said, for First Nations people, our wealth is in our children. That's where we locate our wealth. And someone I was speaking with this morning, she was speaking about her sister, and she said she was rich in children. She was rich in children. We speak about planning for the future. We speak about the new canoe, Emmaus. And we know that we need to have our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren and our great-great-grandchildren in that canoe. And how are we going to get there? What are we going to do? I've been wearing this shirt. I've got so many things around my neck, I don't know if you can see it, but it says, not talking about it isn't working. Not talking about it isn't working. Suicide is such a difficult subject. and it's really hard to raise. And when you try to talk about it, you know, it's not easy tea and cookie conversation. And even sometimes when you try to bring it into other conferences, it's never the right time. You know, it's never the right time. People are already too happy, or people are already too sad, or people are too tired, or they're not awake yet in the morning. There's always a good reason not to talk about suicide. When I visited Kingfisher Lake at the invitation of Bishop Lydia to spend time with the William Winter School of Ministry, Reverend Kanina, as she did tonight, was so brave and so courageous and so loving for her community, because she came up to the mic and shared the loss of her 3 grandchildren to suicide. And by Reverend Kanina doing that, she gave permission. She gave permission for this subject to be prized open a bit. And in Bishop Lydia, courageously and prayerfully and faithfully acknowledging her own family loss in the suicide of her son, she has opened that lid some more. We all do things in our own time. Things come to us in our own time. And the passage in Ecclesiastes, there's a time for tears and a time for joy, a time to build up, a time to tear down, a time to build up, a time for silence and a time to speak. And I believe that all of us, regardless of where we live, because suicide affects everyone regardless of your color or your culture or where you live, I would ask that we pose that question to ourselves. What time is it for us? What time is it for me in relation to this subject? What time is it for me? What can I say? What have I come to the point? And it's okay if you're not there yet. It's okay. It will be your time sometime. And after we ask, what time is it for me? We say, what time is it for my family? We have kids who die, parents who die, uncles and aunties who die, and the pain is so great, it's as though they've disappeared, and we don't talk about them. We just don't talk about them for a long time, maybe never. So what time is it for the family? And then we go to our church. What time is it in our church? Is it time in our church where we can begin to talk about some of these issues? Is it time when, as church, we can be part of suicide prevention in our communities? Because that's the next step. What time is it in our community? What can we do in our communities? Can we join a circle that's already there? Or can we start a circle if none exist? Because church, faith, is the essential part of that circle. There is important knowledge around trauma and around suicide prevention that it's critical that we all learn. But church brings elements to that circle that no one else can bring. And a circle that has, for example, nursing station, school, hospital, that's all very good. But unless you folks are there and unless I'm there, it's not a full circle. And what's missing? Anyone, what's missing when we're not in that circle? What's missing when church is not in that circle? Faith. Faith. Yeah, Teresa. We bring faith. And in that we bring the gift of hope. We bring the miracle of forgiveness. And we bring the sureness of healing. Government programs now, as you know, don't allow any reference can't have any references to faith or to churches. Little bits are trying to at least we can try to use the word spirituality if you get a really easygoing government person and you kind of bury it in lots of other language. But we can't out and out speak about this issue. So we have to be in all those healing places. We have to bring our gifts of faith and hope and forgiveness and healing. We have to do that. We're called to do that for our kids. I will tell you very briefly just a couple of things that we have been doing, because this is your program. This is going to be your program. Up to now, what we did was work with a program called River of Life. River of Life is a computer-based program. It's online training. And in that, it's not ideal because, of course, having face-to-face is what everyone would really want. But the reality is that many of our communities are in places with no roads or with very, very prohibitively expensive airfares to get in and out. So we thought, well, this could be a first go. This could just be a first go. Let's just try this and see if we can at least get some basic understanding to be shared. And that's what we've been doing with River of Life in Moosonee Diocese. Been having a lot of hiccups with our efforts in the northern area. Definitely no lack of interest, just sort of technical things. And poised to do work in Saskatchewan as well. So this is pilot. This is pilot. This is a program that was developed in collaboration with Indigenous communities by the Center for Suicide Prevention over a 2-year period. But it's pilot, and we're piloting it, you're piloting it, to see if it can offer something. There's another program that we've been working with that we just would like to get going that would work intensively with communities. Now because this is slow work. We can't do everything everywhere. We can just try to learn in a few communities at a time and then share what's working best. So it's up to communities to decide. Community self-identifies, says, yes, we would really like to work on this. Yes, we would like to go forward on this. The pamphlet that was made with the great help of, the Anglican communications folks worked with us on this, and this has been at the table that we have. And you'll see there's 2 things I want to point out. One is that my contact information is on the back for anyone who wants to get in touch with me. The other thing that I really want to stress is that this pamphlet was developed specifically for work with First Nations people. And the brooch, about which I will have Lisa talk to you in just a minute, is a First Nations brooch based on the medicine wheel colors. We want to work, and we've had long talks about this, in a completely different way with the people of the Arctic. The Arctic is a totally different experience, different culture, different reality, different symbols. Everything will be different. And so our great prayer is that we hope this time next year we would have work in Inuktitut and symbols and a program. We're doing slow work on the ground towards that because it will be completely independent. Not independent of the program, but it will have its own message and its own process. Iola said to me when I was with him and many others at the Synod of the Diocese of the Arctic in June, Iola said, "Are you trying to tell me that this would be in Inuktitut?" And I said, no, it wouldn't be in Inuktitut. It would be something completely different that you folks would write in Inuktitut. And Iola said, we always get secondhand everything, even secondhand language. So if we could write it first in Inuktitut, that would be wonderful. So that's the message that I want to stress, is that the program is yours. Part of what is going to facilitate this is that Metropolitan David Ashdown and the Council of the North made the decision after their spring meeting to hand over this program to Indigenous ministries. So as of the 1st of July, this is the program of Indigenous ministries. I said to Esther just before coming in here tonight, I said I feel very odd to say it's a celebratory thing to have a suicide prevention program. That doesn't sound quite right. But what is really important to recognize, and what I want to convey tonight, is that it actually is. You know, it maybe celebration isn't the right word, but it is a glorious and wonderful thing that you have a program, that you will be building the program yourselves. You will be creating the program in your own communities to begin to save the children. My own role in this will change over time, maybe even over the short time. I'm behind the scenes in this. My role is to support what communities want to do. Before my first meeting with Council of the North, I was so nervous coming to work on this as a white woman. I felt, by the way things happened, that I had been called to the work at that time, but I was so nervous. And leading into that meeting, I had a dream, 3 nights in a row, and I would be walking into this room, and there was this very beautiful brown person sitting in a very round position, laughing and smiling and very, very joyous, and would beckon me over, and I would say, but I don't speak the language. And at that point, 3 nights running, one of my old high school teachers would come in and would say, but you will learn. So that happened 3 nights in a row. Now, I still have no linguistic talents whatsoever, but I have learned so much from all of you, people in this room and people beyond this room. I have learned so much from all of you. Last summer, I had another dream, and this was about Bishop Andrew, and Bishop Andrew has been very kind in hearing me out when I told him my dreams. This one last summer was Bishop Andrew had an ark. I suppose global warming must have figured into this, that he could get an ark up there. He had an ark, and my job was to work the ramp into the ark. And Bishop Andrew and I were loading bones. We were loading bones and bones and bones into that ark, and he was taking them home. But it wasn't a sad thing. It wasn't bones of death. It was bones going home. It was bones of renewal. I was reminded when I woke up of 2 things. One is that finally museums all over the world are returning things to their rightful places. But the other thing was Ezekiel and the dry bones, and Bishop Andrew taking those bones home to breathe life into them. Together, I think we can breathe life into our communities. Together, we can look after our young people. I have deliberately avoided, certainly, into making this an even more emotional subject than it is. It's not my aim to have a giant session here, because we can't do this. But the timing of the healing service after this hard topic is another of the many blessings that we have received this week, the many, many blessings.